The most extreme form of bereavement is parental bereavement, and I know firsthand of this pain after losing my baby girl Milli at only 6 days old, with no indication of complication prior to her birth. It came as a complete shock to us. We never got to see her eyes, we never got to hear her cry. As the weeks passed and we were riding the tsunami of grief, those around us expressed how useless they felt. They didn't know that we too felt so useless. We didn't even know what we needed, but I knew at that point I needed to speak out. From Milli's life and death, this podcast was birthed. Little Life, Big Loss, as a safe space to talk about baby loss, grief, trauma, heartache, and hope. A safe space for lost parents to share their stories of their real-life angels. A place for those nearest and dearest to learn about our journeys and to gain a deeper understanding in how to help those who are riding the tsunami of grief. Welcome to Little Life, Big Loss. Welcome to episode 9 of Little Life, Big Loss. And I was just saying before that I'm having a very griefy week. I'm having very sad. I'm not looking forward to Christmas. I just can't believe this is reality. I'm in my jammies. I'm not leaving the house today and I'm just really sad. But I'm so excited to be interviewing. I was just talking to my cousins and I said, they're like, how can we help you? And I was like, I don't know. There's nothing you can do, but I'm about to jump on a podcast. And I know some people think like, oh, like, how can you be in this space when you're feeling shit already? And I'm like, you know what? Like, I love this because now I'm just about to be in a space with another mum and we're probably just going to sob together for the next few hours. Yeah. And all of a sudden you realize like, I'm so not alone. And, you know, I don't know your whole story, Sarah, and I deliberately do that before an interview. I don't want to know it all because I want to be in it with you. But I do know you have some earthly babies and I know you have some heavenly babies, and having earthly babies doesn't make it any easier. I think sometimes, in fact, it makes it harder and it adds a whole nother element of grief. And so I am really excited to hear your story today because I know it's going to help me in my journey ahead of the next few years as well. So as I said before, my first question is always, you know, who were you before you were a mother of heavenly babies?
So I was and still am Sarah. I was a wife to my husband, Anthony, and I was a mum to my dogs. So I was a fur mum. But I was just very carefree, loved to travel, very career driven, kind of had just a lot of focus on where I wanted to be. So very different to where I am now.
Yeah. Did you know you wanted to be a mum?
I always knew I was going to be a mum. Well, I always hoped I was going to be a mum, but I always wanted to be a mum. I grew up with young cousins. I grew up with my twin brothers who are 18 months younger than me. So I was always around little ones, and it just came so naturally to me that my end goal was I wanted to be a mum, as every, I think, girl wants to be or has that in their mind.
And I think it's funny when you're career driven and you've got these life goals, you think that we can control all of this. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this and my career will be here and then I'll become a mum and I'll have a child and and we just think it's all so perfectly mapped out. And how much of a shock is it when all of a sudden it's like, oh, we actually have zero control over this.
Yeah. I always
knew. So when did you guys first... Sorry, go.
I always knew that, I wanted to be a mum, but I never realised how hard it was going to be to get to that stage.
Well, we don't. We're not told about it, and it's only now, I think, with social media and things like that and podcasts that people are starting to talk about it.
Yeah.
The thing we're taught all through school is be careful, don't fall pregnant, it's so easy to fall pregnant, No, it's actually not.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not ideal to fall as a young teenager and it can happen and accidents and all the rest of it, but we're really, really not taught the complexities of falling pregnant.
Yeah, 100%.
So when did you and Anthony start trying? Did you start trying Where and when did it all begin? What year was that?
So we actually met at work. We both work in banking. And back in my days of when we met, I was 23, very young, carefree, partied 4 days a week, worked 5 days a week, somehow survived. And we actually met on a friend's barbecue boat, and she told him she's in it for the short run, not the long run. And it's funny because we were just
okay, tick.
Yeah, we were just both the exact same person in regards to, we weren't looking for a relationship. We were just looking for a bit of fun. And that little bit of fun turned into, I moved in a month later. And that was 12 years ago. And I just never left.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love that. How good.
Yeah. He took forever and a day to propose. I think we got engaged at like 5 years or something, and he was getting hounded by my family. And we ended up getting married in 2018, and we went on a massive honeymoon. And I remember saying to him, I'm going to stay on the pill for the honeymoon because God forbid we get pregnant and I'll be sick on the honeymoon. That was my
how
thought
beautiful
process.
That would have been, right?
Yeah.
Very valid. So valid. Yep.
So came off the pill when we got home, and I'd been on the pill for 13 odd years, and I had skipped the sugar pills because that's what I was told to do because I've got PCOS and that'll help manage your symptoms. And well, that didn't work to my advantage. I always knew I was going to need help falling pregnant. I just knew it when I was younger. So I got a referral to go see Dr. Key, the Miracle Man. And basically my ovaries were just asleep. Everything we did just wouldn't wake them up. Okay. And he said, we're going to have to do IVF. And I wasn't really comfortable with doing IVF. I was 30 years old. I see all these people around me getting pregnant. Like, why can't I get pregnant? Why is this so hard for me type thing? So he suggested a laparoscopy first and a high cozy or something. And then he said, let's do ovarian drilling while we're in there. So essentially... Is
that as painful as it sounds?
No, but I have an exceptionally high pain threshold.
Okay.
So essentially he drilled, I think, 6 holes in each of my ovaries. And
far out.
My ovaries are, I think, double the size of what they're supposed to be. I have a ridiculous amount of follicles. My AMH is something stupid. And I never knew what any of this meant.
And this is because of PCOS, right? Yeah. I think, is that because of PCOS?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, my mum has PCOS, so I knew I had PCOS. I didn't get my first period until I was over 18 years old. So I was in the late department. So all of this was very new to me. I didn't get a period. Like, I didn't really know. So after we did the ovarian drilling, they tell you that you're most fertile in the next 3 months, and Key suggested we do an IUI. And I went, okay, that sounds great. So we did our IUI.
And for those listening at home, explain what an IUI is.
So an IUI is artificial insemination. So for those in the IVF world, it is very much like a transfer. You do your trigger shot, you go in and they wash your partner's sperm and they get the best sperm and they inject it into you. So we did that. And I didn't test at home I didn't know when to test. I was waiting for the blood test. And I was at work, which is around the corner from Key's offices. And I had this stitch in my side that just would not go away. And it was driving me crazy. It was just so uncomfortable. And one of my friends goes, you should really do a test. And I was like, nah. I did one this morning and it was a cheap eBay crappy test. And there was a second faint line. But, like, those are notorious to be fake line. Yeah. So I was just like, whatever. So I ran down to Chemist Warehouse, got a first response and did it in the work bathroom. And these are like communal bathrooms. And this test lit up like a Christmas tree. And I just remember sitting there going,
oh my gosh.
Oh, okay. I'm pregnant. Like, how the hell am I going to concentrate at work? So, I didn't know whether to call my husband or wait until I got home, but I just knew I wouldn't be able to, like, hold it in. So I ended up calling him because he was at our other office. And he was so excited and, oh, this is awesome. And it worked straight away because I went into it with the thought of this isn't going to work because nothing works on the first turn. So I ended up ringing Key's office and I said, listen, I just got a positive test. Can I come and do my blood test now? I'm meant to come in 2 days. And they said, yeah, no problems. And confirmed I was pregnant and my progesterone levels were insane. They were in like the 400s, 500s, which I didn't know what any of that meant. I was still learning. Yeah. So we did blood tests for a while, like for as you do every 2 days for I think 3 weeks. And then we got in for our scan. So Aunt and I went in for our scan and I was so excited. I walked into Key's office, pulled my pants down and got up on the table. And
scan me.
I was like, go for it. And he looked at me and he laughed and he goes, no, I can do it through your tummy. And I was like, oh, well, they're off now. Like, might as well keep them on. And my husband's looking at me like, you've just dacked yourself in front of, like, this doctor and these nurses. Like, he wasn't used to that. But anyone that goes into his office knows, like, you got to be quick. So he ended up putting the scanny thing on my belly. And all I saw was 1, 2, 3 sacs. Like 3 different, separate. And I just looked.
So you saw it and knew straight away?
Yeah, and I said, is that 3? And Key, who is a man of many words, just said, that's triplets. And my husband was like, what?
Oh, my word.
And I burst into tears. I think I said, what am I meant to do with 3 babies? I only have 2 boobs. I just...
Valid.
I just looked. And I was hysterical because it was instant shock. So he said, who are you planning on birthing with? And I was like, I have no idea. And he goes, I'm going to refer you to Adriana Olog, a Gold Coast private, because she's the maternal fetal medicine specialist. I said, okay. He goes, so you're graduating today. So I was 6.5 weeks. And I'm calling their office right now for you to get an appointment ASAP. So I remember walking back to work because we had walked down and I couldn't make sense of it. And I remember we got back to work and I went straight into like a private office because we work in like such a large area. And Aunt went and packed up my desk and packed up his desk. And a few of my friends knew that we were going for this scan. So they all automatically thought something was wrong. And I remember calling my mum and just trying to tell her that there's 3 babies, it's triplets. And she was so excited, and she was like, this is awesome. You need to slow down. Like, I can't understand you. And I was just 100 miles an hour trying to process what had just happened. So, yeah, I had a work colleague come in, and she's like, is everything okay? And I just looked at her and I said, it's triplets. And she just went, oh. And
yeah.
I said, I need to go home. Like, I can't.
As would be most people's response, right? It's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah, I was like,
to process.
I couldn't even like make words of it. So, yeah, we went home and we got in pretty quickly to see Adriana. I think I was only like maybe 8 weeks. And she's doing a scan, and there was 3 heartbeats, and they all looked amazing, and they all had their each own little sac. And then she looks at me and I said, don't tell me there's any more. And she went, okay. And I was like, you're joking. And she goes, no, there's one more. And I was like, what do you mean? And she goes, one of them split. So you've got 4 in there.
Fuck.
Yeah. But the one that split hasn't grown any bigger, so that one hasn't made it. And I was like, okay. But still, like, are you sure there's no more? Like, I think I made her rescan me, like, 3 times. I was like, you tell me which way to lay, because I don't know if they're hiding. Like, I need to know.
How common is this? Like, you've obviously done your research now over the years. How common is this with IUI in particular? Like, this is a lot.
So Key said this was his 2nd lot of triplets in more than 15 years. IUI is very commonly known for multiples, but more so for twins. But I have found online on Instagram a few other mums who have IUI triplets, more so in America than here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Key puts it
and
down.
What was the reasoning for that? Why?
So Key puts it down to me having the laparoscopy and being completely cleared out. The ovarian drilling obviously made me ovulate, and we had 2 follicles when we were ready to trigger, but they think one's actually caught up because it would have been 3 separate follicles. And they said that Aunt had super sperm or something. So.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you're having your scan. You're about 8 weeks. You've got definite 3 heartbeats and then a 4th potential that hasn't been growing. What happens after that?
So we were getting scanned weekly just to see how they were going. We went and did our NIP test, which is near impossible with multiples. And there's only one particular test that you can do when you have more than, like, from triplets upwards. So I got sent off to do that test, and then they did it wrong. So I had to go back a few days later to get it redone, which was extremely frustrating because it's a ridiculous amount of money that you have to pay to get it done. And everything came back.
They didn't cover it if they did it wrong?
No. So our OB actually got it refunded.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So everything came back low risk, which was wonderful. And we got told they can only determine whether you're having all of one gender or there is a mixture. I always said that I would have 2 boys and a girl because my brothers are twins and I'm a girl. I'm just used to having 2 boys and a girl in my head.
2 boys and a girl. Yeah.
My mum said the exact same thing, 2 boys and a girl. But when obviously I got bigger, we could tell at about 16 weeks, and the OB said, no, you're having 2 girls and a boy. So we were stoked. I mean, to have a mixture, knowing that we were not going to be pregnant again after this, there's no way that I would do anything after having 3 babies at once. But it was very hard for me to get excited because I knew how risky this was going to be. And I always just knew that they were never going to come home. I just had this feeling. And I just knew, I don't know, I just knew something was going to happen.
Yeah.
So we
do, you know, I was just, sorry, I was chatting to a friend this morning and I said the same thing about Milli the week before I birthed her. I just kept saying to my sister, I don't want to lose her and I don't want to hurt her or I don't want her to be hurt. And I never imagined bringing her home, which breaks my heart because I feel so like guilty that I manifested it, which I know is not true, but it's like this innate feeling inside of you that you just know.
Yeah.
And I hate it. You're not the first mum that I've spoken to that has that same feeling.
Yeah.
And I think this is the thing with multiples as well, is that like a lot of people have said to me now doing IVF, oh, are you just going to ask them to put 2 in? Like, we would love twins, but there is so much risk that comes with multiple babies, you know, and there's so much risk that comes with IVF and that, you know, with having this and you would have known straight away having triplets isn't just the fear of, holy shit, how do I raise 3 babies at once? But also there's so much more risk in utero.
Yeah. So I always had this fantasy that I was going to have twins. It's in my family. So I have triplets on my dad's side, which we didn't find out until I was pregnant with the triplets. And every generation on my mum's side has twins. So I was expecting twins and I had prepared myself for that. But if you were to ask me now, and I see this question a lot in Key's support page, do I transfer 1 or do I transfer 2? I would love twins. And I don't want to be that person to shoot them down. But I have to put in there, twins is a fantasy, but the risk that comes with it, it's not worth it. It's not.
Yeah.
And I know my situation was 1 in a million, so I can't compare to anyone and no one can compare to me. But yeah, if people ask me, should I transfer 2? This is my last chance. I always say no. And that's only because of what I've been through.
That's good advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think people know or people that haven't been in the world don't know the risks. And I know that when we were in hospital with Milli, Dylan looked at the nurses on one of the last days and said, hopefully we just have twins next or something like that. And the look on these NICU nurses' faces were like, please don't hope for that, because they know, I mean, how many twins are probably always in NICU, you know. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's just a huge risk.
Yeah.
So at around 16 weeks, you found out you had 2 girls and 1 boy. And then what happened after that?
So we got to about 17, 18 weeks, and it was around about Christmas time. And I said to my OB, can we drive down to Newcastle and see my husband's family? And she goes, yeah, your cervix is good. Everything's good. Go, enjoy, have fun. So we did. And we had a good time. I went for a swim in the ocean. I went for a swim in a friend's pool. I sat on the trampoline while the kids were jumping. All of these things now that I wish I never did. But I didn't know. And we got back from Newcastle, and it was, I think it was like New Year's Day. And I got this, like, I had never felt, and I never got to feel the triplets because I had 3 anterior placentas. I had a wall of placentas.
Fuck.
So it literally was big belly. I was at least the size of 25 weeks, 26 weeks at 19 weeks pregnant with them. A wall of placentas and then the babies. So I never got to feel them kick. I never knew what movement felt like. It was my first pregnancy. I didn't know what to look out for. I didn't know. So I think it was New Year's Day, and I was sitting on the couch and I was talking to Anne, and all of a sudden I just got this, what I now know was an almighty kick, and it took like the breath out of me, and it was like right down. It's like someone had kicked me in the vagina with a steel cap boot. And I stood up and I was like, oh, I don't know what that was, but ow, that hurt. But then I didn't feel anything else, and I was like, oh, I must be fine. And I wish I went to the hospital. I wish with every single day that I had gone in. But it wasn't for a few days. And we're in the nursery, which is where I am now. And Aunt was painting, and I was sitting on the floor watching. And I started to have these weird pains. And I said, I'm just going to go lay down. And I ended up timing them. And they were coming every 20 minutes. And I was like, I think these could be contractions, but I don't know. So I rang the hospital, and they all knew who I was. And they were just like, oh, it's probably nothing, but let's just get you in to have a check. So off we went, and I think I was in a T-shirt, cut off.
You're 19 weeks at this stage?
19 weeks. So it was a Friday.
Yeah.
And I was in thongs, like cut-off jean shorts and a T-shirt. And we go to the birth suite, and I will never forget this room. And I've never been into it since. And they put the CTG on me, and they're like, well, we can find the babies. And they said, we're just going to do a speculum and check you. And I said, yeah, okay. And they barely even got in there, and they came straight back out. And I was like, oh, that's strange. So they got the ultrasound machine, and they're checking the babies. And she looked me dead in the eye. And she said, one of your babies has put their feet through your cervix. So we actually found out it was...
Is that a common thing? I've never heard of that.
No. So we actually found out we were having 2 boys and a girl.
Oh.
They got one of the genders wrong. And
honey.
Our little girl, every ultrasound was so active. And we think that she kicked one of the boys, and his feet went through my cervix. So they tilted my bed instantly to take the pressure off my cervix. And this was a sad day. No. I don't know what day it was.
So this is New Year's Day. What year? What year are you?
2020. Yeah. 2020.
Yeah.
So they said, we're going to have to call the Mater Hospital. You're going to have to be transferred. And I remember calling my mum, telling her that I was potentially in labour at only 19 weeks. And she got there really, really quickly. And she pretty much was begging them just to keep my bed tilted, which they did. But that is the hardest position to be in. It puts a lot of pressure everywhere else. It's really uncomfortable. But we did it. So they ended up keeping me at the private hospital that night just to monitor how things were going, because the Mater said, let's just see how she goes overnight. Maybe things will stop, because I wasn't contracting anymore. So my OB at the time was on a cruise. Her first holiday in God knows how long. So she didn't know. They said we can't contact her. They just didn't want to bother her. And they spoke to the fetal maternal medicine doctor up at the Mater, and they said, how did she go overnight? And they said, yeah, she really needs to be looked at. And they said, okay, put her in an ambulance and up we go. So no one was allowed to come with me except for my midwife. So aunt and my mum were going to drive up, and they put me in a code 1 ambulance, light and sirens, and we got from Southport to the Mater in 30 minutes. So I don't even know how fast they were going. But the driver was holding down the horn, and he was yelling at people to get out of the way. And even then, I didn't realise how serious the situation was. And so we got there, and I was all alone. My midwife was like, I have to go back now, so I'm going to get a taxi back, and I'll leave you with the doctors. And it was the worst experience. They scanned me, and they just said to me, it's too late to do a cervical stitch. There's nothing we can do. And I said, okay, well, can you get me back to the other hospital? Because I don't want to have these babies alone. Like, I thought they were coming then and there. And I was terrified.
Now, yeah.
So, they put me in another ambulance by myself. And we drove a lot slower back to my hospital. And I remember calling my mum and my husband. And they said, where are you? And I said, I'm coming back. There's nothing that they can do. And my mum was like, no, they have to be able to do something. And I said, I'll just see you back at the hospital. So they brought me back, and they monitored me again. And a different OB came in, and she was amazing. And she said that the same thing had happened to her. That she knows what it's like to be in this situation. And I needed to hear that. I needed to not feel so alone. Because it was our first pregnancy. You're so naive. Like, you just think you fall pregnant, you're going to have a baby 9 months later. And the fact it was our first pregnancy was so cruel that we had to experience, or anyone has to experience, loss on their first pregnancy.
And it was triplets, and it was anterior placenta. Like, I mean, I know the anterior placenta thing, right? It's just like, and I know the first pregnancy, it was the same with us. Like, we never felt Milli kick. And we just, and I wouldn't say we got dismissed, but we did. It was like, it's your first pregnancy, you've got an anterior placenta, it's okay. Even though I knew deep down I don't think this is right. But, you know, how do I know? I'm naive. It's my first pregnancy. So,
yeah.
And then you add the element of you having triplets on top, you know, that is, even though they've told you in there you're low risk, it's still high risk. There's 3 little humans you're trying to grow.
Yeah. So, the OB said to me, you're going to need to make a decision whether we induce or we just see what happens. And I think my body just needed to hear that, because she said, I'll give you a tablet and you'll pop it under your tongue and it should kick things off. And it's like she gave me the tablet and everything just kicked off. And I got the contractions.
Fuck.
Pretty much straight away. And even then, my mum was begging the OB, can she just stay in the bed like that for another 6 weeks to try to get to 24 weeks? And I said, Mum, they can't.
Does your mum have any, like, medical background? Like, what, or was it just her innate feeling of, like, please just hold them in there?
Yeah. So, she's not a nurse or a midwife or anything. She just, I guess, because she had children, she just knew.
And she had twins, yeah.
She knew that there were ways. And I thought there were ways as well. And Ant had no idea. I mean, he's a man. He doesn't know anything about pregnancy. They just know how to make a girl pregnant, really. And and he was like, okay, so what happens from here? Do they go to the NICU once they're born? And I just said to him, I said, no, it's too early. Fuck. I said, it's way too early. And there's nothing that can be done. So the contractions came hard and fast, and it was probably like less than an hour later. My mum has a history of fast labours, and she gave him the heads up, this is going to be fast. And they said, okay, it's time to push. And I remember I'd never pushed before. I don't know how to push. I remember like turning and burying my head because I didn't want to face the reality of what I had to do.
Of course.
So we pushed and one came out. And the OB put them on me and I just froze. I think I literally just stood there like, what do I do? Because...
yeah, of course.
They're so little. And then kept pushing and had them all. And they...
oh, my word.
They wrapped them up in a blanket. And it was so weird. It was like I was watching it happen to somebody else. It was so surreal. I had no emotion. I had no tears. I was in shock. They were perfect. They were just too little. And I just remember sitting there holding them and just looking at their tiny little fingers. And Olivia, our girl, looked exactly like me. And Ashton, our boy, looked exactly like Ant. And the boys looked very similar.
Yeah.
And we just...
What was your third little boy?
Beau. So we just kind of sat there and just looked at them. And I wish that I took the blankets off and really looked at them.
Oh, I know. Well, like, it's so hard in hindsight when you look back. Like, I wish we spent more time with Milli after she passed. When she passed, I was like, we've got to get out of here. Like, it was so intense, and I just wish I stayed there for days.
Yeah. So, my mum came back into the room once they were born. So she stayed while I was labouring, and as they were being born, she left the room. So it was just me and my husband. And she came back in, and she was crying, and I was just numb and in shock.
Mm-hmm.
And my OB looks at me, and she said, really sorry, but we're going to have to take you to theatre. One of their placentas is stuck.
Oh, fuck.
And I was just defeated. And I said, I don't want to go. And they said, you have to go. You are at risk of bleeding out, and we need to get in there ASAP. So my mum stayed with Ant, and they dressed them in these little angel gowns whilst I was in theatre. And it was only months later that I realised I wasn't there when they died.
I was going to ask you, were they breathing when they came out?
Yeah, they were breathing. And it's such a regret that I wasn't there. But I didn't have a choice. I had to go.
You had no control over that.
I had no choice. So I came out of surgery, and they took us to our room, and they had put them in a cuddle cot, which is the cool cot. And they had...
when you say surgery, like, did they have to cut you for surgery, or how did they get the placenta out?
They had to do a D&C.
Okay.
So, I had a D&C done. And it was a Sunday when I had them. And I remember the surgical ward just being so quiet. And they wheeled me down, and the anaesthetist was this lovely young guy, and he just said, I'm really sorry, and you won't be I'm not charging you for this. And even then I was like, okay. And we were in our room, and they had my bed, the cuddle cot, and then they had Ant's bed on the other side. And I noticed as they were wheeling me into the room, these butterflies on the door.
Oh.
And I asked what that meant, and they said we put them on all the doors just to let everyone know that there's stillborn babies in there.
Fuck.
And they gave me a tablet, and they said, this is to dry up your milk, and this is all the shit you don't think of. And they said, how about you have a shower, and we'll give you a sleeping tablet. And I went and had a shower, and I just remember the water washing over me. And I just wanted to sit down. I just wanted to crawl into bed. I was so exhausted. I haven't slept in days. And they gave me a sleeping tablet. And I think I just passed out until the next morning. I don't remember moving. I don't remember waking up. I don't remember anything. So the next morning, I remember getting them out of the cot and just sitting there and just looking at them. And I said to my husband, we have to name them. It's not fair that they don't have names. So we named them. And the nurses told us that we could spend as much time as we liked. And I just said, it's not fair for us to sit here with them. We need to say goodbye. And I needed to get out of that hospital.
Yeah.
There was no offer to do photos or anything like that, and I'm so thankful that one of the midwives, after we just had them, just grabbed my phone and just started taking photos. I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah.
And I do look back
I'm
at
shocked
the photos.
that they didn't offer. They didn't offer heartfelt or anything to come out.
Nothing. And I don't know if maybe they did and I just said no. I don't remember, but Ant said he doesn't remember them doing anything like that. They did take little hand and feet prints for us. But we got no bears of hope, teddy bears, we got nothing.
Yeah.
And now that I know so much more about it, and the level of care that you received at the Mater, do I wish we stayed at the Mater? Probably. Yeah. Because I needed someone to tell us what we needed, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
We had no idea. So,
but it shouldn't matter what hospital you're in. Like if you're in a hospital that allows for that, you were there and they have the facilities for that to go on, then they should have the facilities to cater afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
It shouldn't matter what hospital you're in.
Yeah. So we made the decision that we were going to say goodbye. So they set up like a separate room in the birth suite, and it was a birth room. It was the birth suite. They just pulled the curtain, and they said that we could undress them, which we did, and that we could take their stuff with us because they had little beanies and little angel. Like we left the little angel gowns on them, but we took their little blankets and everything. And I remember getting dressed into the clothes that I came in. And I've never felt so empty in my life. The pants, I had to walk out holding them because they were so big on me. Like I just lost my belly straight away. And I remember walking out of those doors with nothing. And having to leave them there. And I remember telling the midwife, I want them all to stay together. I don't want them to be separated. Please keep them all together. I said, and when they go to the funeral home, I want them to stay together. And she said, yep, I will make sure. So we came home. And the first thing I walk into was our pram sitting in the box in the living room. And I said, I don't I don't want to deal with returning that. Somebody else can do that. Someone can call Baby Bunting and take the car seats off Levi. And when we were at the hospital, we obviously had to call family members. And my husband called all of my family members, and I don't know why, but I called one of my twin brothers because his wife was also pregnant. And I called them, and it was her birthday the day after, or so, I don't know. And I called them and I said, I just wanted to let you know that the triplets are here. And I went into early labour. And he goes, okay, are they in the NICU? And I said, no, they didn't make it. It's just too early. And he goes, okay, we're coming up. So, I said, oh, you don't have to come up. I said, you can meet them if you want, but I don't want to scare you, because they were, I think, 12 weeks pregnant at the time, and they're younger. And I had no emotion whatsoever. I just wanted to protect them and not scare them. And they came up, and my whole family was hysterical. But I just wasn't there.
Just numb, yeah.
Yeah, and I vaguely remember them being there. And at home, Aunt had to call my boss because I was due to go back to work that day because we'd been on annual leave. And he told her what had happened. And then she said, take all the time that you need. Would you like us to tell the team, or are you going to announce it publicly? And he goes, no, if you can tell the team. So a meeting was held. And we'd only announced on Facebook that we were pregnant 2 weeks before we lost them. And I remember deleting... I remember deleting that post because I didn't want to look at people saying congratulations. And I didn't want to do a post to say that we'd lost them. So I did nothing. And I had people bring us food and flowers, and I just sat on the couch and did nothing for 4 weeks. And Aunt went back to work because he needed to be productive. He needed the distraction. He needed...
Yeah, that was Dylan.
He needed something. And I had another 4 weeks off, and I said, okay, I need to go back to work. And I remember sitting in the basement in my car, just not able to get out of the car. And I could not get out of my car. What is everyone going to know? What are they going to ask me? So I did get out of the car, and I went straight to my desk. And there's always one person in the office. Like, they'd all been told, leave her alone, just let her settle in. If she wants to talk, she will talk. So I had someone in the office come over to me, oh, hi, how you doing? And I just looked at them. Like, how do you want me to how do you want me to respond? And then it just got worse as the day went on. So we had a branch underneath us, and everyone had failed to mention to them what had happened.
Oh, no.
So when I left, I had this massive 19-week belly, And when I came back 2 weeks later, I had no belly.
Fuck.
So yeah, they were eventually told, but...
And you just have to look at people, because I know that the feeling, they look at you and then they look at your belly and then they look back at you with this excited face, and you've just got to like shake your head as if, nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I have no words, but no.
Yeah. So it just, yeah, it was hard. I didn't expect dealing with the funeral home to be as hard as that was, because on all the paperwork it kept saying baby of Sarah. So it was all on me. It had nothing to do with Aunt. I had to sign the documents. We had to make decisions on what to do, and we had no idea. And it was literally the day after we left the hospital that we had to deal with the funeral home, and we had to go in and we had to go through all the paperwork, and nobody else could do it but me. And they kept asking, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. Don't know. I don't know how. I'd never thought of whether I wanted to cremate my babies or bury them, because never fucking thought this was going to be my reality.
Yeah. So, I said I want them to be cremated. I want them all to be together. I don't want them to leave each other's sides. And then they said that there's a garden within the memorial where they could spread their ashes with all the other babies. And I said, no, I want to keep them. So we got the call to say that they were ready to be picked up. And that was the most awful thing I've ever done in my life. It was this plastic box with a sticker on it.
That's so fucked up.
And they said we could do like pretty urns and love hearts. And what I wanted to do was put their ashes into a teddy bear so that when I have kids, they could be with them. And I'll be honest, I've done nothing. I put everything into a box, and I put it out of sight, and I haven't been able to open it since. And we're coming up to 4-year anniversary, and I can't do it. And everyone kept telling me, so what now? And we went back and we saw Key, and he was just devastated. And the office girls were devastated because everyone was so excited. And I said to him, I want to get back into it. I don't want to replace him, but I need to get back into it. I need to be busy. And it's the only world I knew. So I said, let's do 2 more IUIs, and if they don't work, we'll do IVF. So we did 2 more IUIs, and they didn't work. And I was like, okay, cool. We're going on to IVF then. So we jumped straight into an egg collection, and I felt fine doing all the needles. None of that bothered me. I just had an end goal in sight. I just needed to be pregnant again. I just needed to have a baby. And we had really good egg collection results, thanks to my PCOS. So we collected 21 eggs.
Wow.
And then we ended up having 3 or 4 embryos. And I kept...
From 21 eggs?
Yeah. And
It's crazy.
let me tell you, the wait whilst your embryos are forming is worse than the 2-week wait. It is horrendous. Even though they call you and they update you daily, you don't want to answer the phone because you don't want to know, but you need to know. So my estrogen was quite high, and normally when your estrogen, I think it is high, they say you can't do a fresh transfer because you're at risk of overstimulating.
Okay.
Key agreed that if I felt fine, then let's go for it. And I don't know if it was because of my high pain threshold or I was still so numb from everything I'd been through. I felt nothing. So we did our fresh transfer. And I remember 5 days past our transfer and I did everything right. Warm belly, warm feet, warm foods. I did everything in my power.
Salty chips.
Macca's chips. I did everything. It was the middle of summer and I was wearing track pants, fluffy socks and a hoodie to my transfer on a 30-degree day. And I remember doing a test at 5 days past transfer and it was negative. And I was shattered because I'd seen all these girls online doing tests at 5 days past and there's a clear line and why isn't this working? But I had gone into it like this isn't going to work. Very much the same I did with the IUI. So I did a test 5 days. I skipped day 6. I said, that's it, it's all over. And at midnight, I don't even know why I was awake so late because I'm normally in bed by 9 o'clock. I did a cheap, crappy eBay test. I hopped into bed. I put it beside the bed and I kind of forgot about it. And I went to go turn off my light and I saw this faint second line. I remember looking at it saying, fuck off. And I've pulled it up and there's a second line. And I said, well, shit, now I have to do a first response because I don't trust this one, but I've just peed. So what do I do? I drink, like, and I'm like, maybe I can pee again. And I did. And the second line was the faintest line you've ever seen in your life. And I had a meltdown to my husband earlier. I said, this hasn't worked. And I was hysterical. And he said, you don't know yet. And I brought this test out. And he goes, what are you doing awake? And I'm like, I think I'm pregnant. And he's got the worst eyesight in the world. So I was like, you're not going to be able to see this. And he's like, no, I think I can see it. So I remember messaging girlfriends at midnight, trying to get their opinion. And we went for our bloods, and it was confirmed, you're pregnant. And I wasn't excited because of everything we'd been through. Like, what if something happens? But with Savannah's pregnancy, that early on, I was having really bad heartburn. And I don't have heartburn. And I was like, that's really strange. And then I was having, like, really sore back pain. And I'm like, that's also really strange. But we booked in for our scan with Key, and he looked at me and he said, okay. So this was IVF, first cycle,
fresh
pregnant
transfer.
Savannah. Yes.
Fresh transfer. Yeah. Amazing.
So continue. He looked at me and he said, okay, I'm going to do a lot of checking. And I said, please tell me there's just one. So he checked and he checked.
Yeah.
And there was just one. And I couldn't be excited because I was so terrified of something happening. So we rang our OB straight away. And Key graduated us at 9 weeks. And we went and saw her at 10 weeks. And she confirmed there's definitely only one. And I said, how can we stop what happened the first time happening again? Because I can't do this whole pregnancy on edge. I can't do it. And she said, because your cervix opened early, we're going to do a cervical stitch at about the 13 weeks. And I said, okay.
Did they ever offer an autopsy on the triplets, or because of the cervix, that was the only reason that they put down to what happened?
They did confirm that I had picked up an infection. So whether that was from the ocean, or the pool, who knows? We don't know.
But I mean, I know you blame yourself for that, but we don't get told don't swim if you're pregnant. You know, that's...
Yeah. So...
I don't know. What are we meant to do when we're pregnant? Wrap ourselves up in fucking cotton wool? It's so shit.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I did with Savannah. So...
Yeah. And I probably will with my next two.
Yes. So they said, let's do a cervical stitch. Just for even your peace of mind, you'll feel better knowing that your cervix can't open again. So, they said, do you want to know the gender when you do the nip test? And I said, yes, I want to know the gender, but I don't want to know until my birthday, which was the day before I went to go get my cervical stitch put in place. So, we got to 13 weeks and I woke up in the morning a bit startled because I had dreamt that I was bleeding. So I got up and went to the bathroom, as you do, and sure enough, I looked down and there's blood dripping into the toilet.
Fuck.
And my heart just stopped. And I walked out to my husband, who was still in bed. And I said, I'm bleeding. And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, I'm bleeding.
No.
And he goes, okay, let's call the hospital. So I called the hospital. And I couldn't even talk. I was hysterical. And they said, okay, because of your history, get in here as fast as you can. We'll meet you at the front of the hospital with a wheelchair and we'll take you straight to go and get a scan. And I remember my husband dropping me off. And I was to the point where I was hyperventilating and I couldn't believe what was happening. And they wheeled me into the room and there was about 7 people in there. And Ant comes rushing in because he parked the car. And the sonographer's trying to help me pull my pants down. And I'm just sitting there. My OB's in there and she's holding me. And she's like, it's okay, let's just have a look at the baby. And they put the thing on my tummy. And baby was fine. And I couldn't accept that the baby was fine. I said, no, they're not fine. Why am I bleeding? Why is this happening to me? My OB calmed me down. And she said, I'm admitting you straight away. You just need to rest. And I just want to keep an eye on you.
Okay.
So, turns out I had a subchronic hematoma. I think that's the word.
Okay.
Which is...
And are you back in the same hospital at this stage? The same hospital that you birthed the triplets?
Same hospital.
Yeah.
I did consider, and I always thought I would birth at Pindara because it's closer to home for me. But the level of care my OB gave me and the follow-up after the triplets was just exceptional. So I knew I wanted to be back with her. But she doesn't birth out of any other hospitals. So,
What's her name?
Adriana Olog. And she is amazing. So they kept me overnight and they said, let's just keep an eye on this bleeding. Let's see if it's going to stop. And it did. And they said, okay, we're going to proceed with the cervical stitch. So I got taken into surgery. They put you under for, I think it's like 10 minutes. And they do an ultrasound at the same time that they're doing it so that they can make sure the positioning's right. Baby's okay. Baby was fine. So, yeah, they did that. And I could finally say she was a she. Because the day before I had my family over for my birthday and I wanted to do the balloon pop. So I got one of my best friends to organise the balloon pop. There's only 4 days between me and my husband's birthday, so it's just a special week for us. And I remember I couldn't pop the balloon. I said, you're going to have to do it. I can't do it. And he goes, okay. And it popped pink and I screamed. And I was so excited. I burst into tears. I knew she was a girl. But it made it so much scarier. Because I always had such a connection to Olivia, our girl triplet, that I was then terrified that Savannah was going to...
Petrified of losing another little girl.
Yeah, I thought she was going to get ripped away. So, pregnancy was pretty good. Pregnancy was easy, but it was filled with so much anxiety. I think I was getting scanned every 2 weeks. It was during COVID. So I had to go to appointments by myself.
Yeah, so when was this?
So this was... I had my egg collection May 2020. So like 4 months after I lost the triplets.
Wow. Yeah.
And she was due.
And then you were pregnant. You did a fresh transfer. So, yeah. So 2021, you would have been due sometime.
Yeah, due February 2021. So we got to Christmas and I was 30-something weeks pregnant. And I won a maternity shoot. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it, but I'm so glad we did it because the photos are just stunning. And we used those photos to announce to people that we were pregnant and we were due to have a baby in less than 10 weeks. We used that moment. Oh, you hadn't
told anyone prior to that?
No. So everyone at work knew.
Yeah.
Everyone at work, unfortunately, knew early because someone in my office had seen my Instagram page. So I started my Instagram page as a therapy to just let people know these things happen to everyday people. And it was so good for me just to kind of get it off my chest. And I didn't announce that we were pregnant, but I did my pregnancy test. Like I brought them along for the journey and I didn't know someone from work had joined on there and she's the big mouth of the office. And she started telling people at only 7 weeks pregnant. So I had people coming up to me going, wow. Oh, congratulations, you're pregnant. And I was horrified. And I ended up going to, that person's boss and getting them in trouble because how dare they take that away from me and my husband. So, we used our photos to announce what had happened earlier on in the year and what we had been through to where we are now. And the closer we got to the due date, I said to my OB, I want to be induced. I need to have control over this. I'm a control freak at the best time, but I needed to be in control. So she said, okay, we'll take your stitch out at 37 weeks. And I said, okay. So we took it out on a Friday, and that's just in the birth suite. They can just kind of pull it out. No pain, nothing, easy. And
Is it just literally like a stitch? Like a stitch?
I've got a photo of it. It's like a circle around your cervix, and then it's pulled shut and like knotted. So when they take it out, they just pull on the little end bit and it kind of slips off. So even though that pregnancy came with so much anxiety and so many restrictions, I wasn't allowed to go swimming. I wasn't allowed to have a bath. I wasn't allowed to have sex. I wasn't allowed to exercise. Wow. I wasn't allowed to lift anything.
Far out.
I wasn't allowed to do anything. So we got the stitch taken out, and they said, you can go do whatever you want. And I'm like, well, I can tell you I'm still not going to do all of those things. So
yeah.
They said, go and have some breakfast at your local cafe and see if you feel anything. So we went to Harbour Town. And we ordered breakfast, and it's like 7 o'clock in the morning, so everything's shut. And I didn't realise people actually go there and exercise and do laps. And there was this gentleman doing laps as fast as he could. So I was power walking behind him, like following him to see if I could get things moving. And I'm gutter walking. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just giving it a try. And I've got all my family going, what's happening? How are you feeling? And I was like, fine. And I get back to the hospital, and they're like, how are you feeling? And I'm like, fine. And they're like, okay, well, go home, and if anything happens, come straight back type thing. If not, we'll see you on Monday. And I said, okay. So I don't even know.
So you're 37 weeks at this point.
37 weeks, yep. I don't even remember what we did that weekend. I think we went out for dinner. And then we presented to the hospital Monday morning. And I mean early. They said, I think be here by 6. And we were there at like 5 because there's only one room at that hospital with the birth pool. And I wanted that room.
Yeah.
And because of COVID, when you get to the hospital, you have to check in and then you can go up. Instead of checking in, because there was already a line of pregnant women, I said, oh, no, I just spoke to them. They said we can go straight up because I didn't want to miss out on this room.
Bless. Yeah.
So we get up there and no one's up there. And I said, I want that room. I said, I don't want to go into this room because that's where I had my triplets. I want to stay far away from that room. I want this room. And they said, yeah, okay, no worries, go in. And I was stoked that we had gotten that room. Yeah. And they checked me. My OB came in. She goes, how are you feeling? I'm like, good, let's do this. Like, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, let's go.
And she goes, all right, let's break your waters. But what I didn't realise was you break your waters, you're going to be having a baby that day. So they broke my waters and they said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I need snacks. So let's go for a walk down to the local Woolies. So off we went. And I remember being in these fugly white cream maternity pants. I have no idea where I got them from or why I was wearing them. I think it's the only thing that fit me. But every time my husband made me laugh, I would leak. And you could see like these pants starting to get wetter. So we're in Woolies and they've just opened. And he's making me laugh and I'm like, stop it. And then he's saying like, clean up on aisle, whatever we were in. And we're laughing so hard. And
that's hilarious.
I started to have contractions and I was like, oh, I think we're on. So we start to walk back and sure enough, they're just coming. And I'm stopping and I'm breathing through them. And I said, I want to do the hospital stairs. So off we go into the hospital stairs, and I'm doing 2 at a time, and I'm charging. And it got to the point I was just so keen and excited to just live the labour experience. Yeah. And it got to the point where, like, I've stopped and I'm holding on and I couldn't talk. And there was nurses using those stairs, and they're like, do you want me to get a wheelchair? And I was like, no, I'm doing this on purpose. And Ant's like, I think we better go back to the room now. And I was like, no, just one more. And he's like, you can barely talk. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. And we get back to the room, and they're like, I think we better start filling this bath up. So they start filling the bath up. And I just remember I couldn't get comfy no matter what I did. And I get into the bath, and this was the first bath I had had in 10 months. And it just felt so good and so warm.
Love a good bath.
And Ant got some really nice photos of me. And I just couldn't be in there anymore. I was like, no, this is really annoying. I just want to get out. So I got out. And I got onto the bed. And I didn't want to birth on a bed. I didn't want to be on my back. I didn't want to be in that position. But that's just how it happened. And they're like, okay, well, it's ready to push. And I'm like, what do you mean it's ready to push? I've only been doing this for like 2 hours. Hour and a half. And they're like, yeah, you're 10 centimetres, you're good to go. And I'm like, but I don't have that urge to push. So up the legs went, and they're like, all right, here you go. So I ended up pushing for an hour.
No epidural, no drugs, no nothing?
No, nothing. I didn't want anything. And I'm really stubborn. And I said to my husband, if I ask for something, tell me no. And I never did. I never asked. I knew I wouldn't ask. I just wanted to get into it. And thank God I have fast labours, because, I don't think I would have been in the same situation if it went on for like days. But, hour and a half pushing, and I didn't have that pushing urge. So it literally was me just bearing down and pushing, and it was the most exhausting thing I've ever done in my life. And 3-hour labour, out she came, and she was covered in vernix. She was just white, and I didn't cry. I was just so tired. I was so exhausted. I remember just her on my chest going, oh my God, thank God that's done. And I hate myself because it wasn't reaction.
No, but you know what? It's not what I feel from that is it wasn't just 3 hours of labor. That was 10 fucking months of anxiety that you had to go through before you got her on your chest. That's not just the labor. You're exhausted from all of that. Like, that's a long time to be anxious, and then that relief.
Yeah. So
there's no right or wrong way for you to react in that. Yeah.
I was so relieved that she was there and she was safe. I was just so exhausted that I couldn't function. Like, no one tells you how hard pushing is. No one tells you. So I had her on my chest, and I got that amazing skin to skin, which is what I wanted, and I wanted delayed cord clamping, and I got all of that. And then she went to Ant, and she had skin on skin with him. And I had no tearing, no nothing, but my OB just did a cosmetic stitch for me. Because I had like the tiniest grade. She goes, I don't need to do anything, but if you want me to, I'm like, yeah, go for it. And my midwife helped me to have a shower, and Ant dressed Savannah, and I walked back to the maternity ward, pushing her. I just walked.
Wow.
I felt fine. I felt so good. And when we walked through to my room, I walked past a room with a butterfly and my heart broke.
Oh, fuck.
For whoever was in there. But then I would look at Savannah and I'm like, but that's not me. That's not me. And I had to tell myself, that's not me. That's not me.
Oh, fuck.
So, yeah, we got to go back to our room. And she was and still is an amazing sleeper. And we had family and friends come and meet her. And the reality still hadn't sunk in for me. It was very surreal. And I remember walking out those doors with her in my arms. And I just could not stop crying. And people were shouting out to me, congratulations. She's beautiful. I remember putting her in the car and I was just like, how is this real? And I still was under the belief that something was going to happen and she was going to get taken away from me. I don't think it was until she was at least 9 months that I kind of was like, okay, maybe things are going to be okay. But I threw myself back into that world. I did another transfer when she was only 6 months old because I knew I wanted to have kids so close in age. And because I had such a non-complicated birth, I could go back so soon. I remember seeing Keith at 6 months postpartum, and he said, well, are you still breastfeeding? And I said yes, because I had worked really fucking hard to breastfeed Savannah, because that's also another thing no one tells you isn't so hard for certain people. And I said, yeah, I am. Can I still do a transfer? And he said, yeah, you can. We'll just limit one of your meds. So we did a frozen transfer, which I had never done before. So I was very...
Because you had what? How many embryos did you have?
We had 3 frozen. So we had used Savannah, which was our fresh, and then we had 3 frozen. So we did our transfer with our B grade, which was our best one. Savannah was a B grade, and this B grade took. I got a positive pregnancy test, and Aunt was so excited, and I was just not excited. I was like, until I kind of have bloods. So I went for bloods, and they're like, yeah, congratulations, you're pregnant. We'll see you in a week. And I said, no, I'm going to come back in 48 hours. I just want to make sure it's doubling. And I went back 48 hours, and my HCG had decreased. So we had a chemical pregnancy.
You knew.
I knew.
I feel like you knew.
Yeah. And I was due to do a friend's podcast that day. And I remember calling her just saying, I can't do it, because all the emotions had come flooding back. And we went back to back with another frozen transfer, and it was our C grade embryo. And I had absolutely no faith in that taking. I don't even know why we did the transfer, but we did. And it didn't take. So we had to make the decision, do we transfer our last embryo or do we do another egg collection? And something was telling me to do an egg collection, to do another fresh transfer, and it will work. Something was telling me. And I just said to my husband, we're doing another egg collection. So miraculously, we got the documents signed in record time, and Monash processed stuff in time for the first time in their lives. And And I went into an egg collection and I had even better results. I had 44 eggs collected.
Fuck off. Wow.
And I sure as hell felt it. I felt so bloated and sore that I thought I had ovulated. And we ended up having an A grade, which was our fresh, which is our huddy, and 2 more. So now we have a total of 3 frozen. So we did our fresh, and Key said, before we do your fresh transfer, let's just see how you go in the 5 days, because you're going to be adding progesterone, you're going to be even more sore. So I was a lot more tender this time than I was before, but I was fine. I wasn't in pain. I wasn't on painkillers. I was fine. So he said, right, let's do your fresh. Let's go for it. So we did it. And I refused to test until 7 days past transfer because of what happened with Savannah. I just couldn't put myself.
Did you do 5-day transfers?
Yeah, 5-day transfer. But I had an acupuncture appointment at 6 days past transfer. And I said, you know what, I'll just do a crappy eBay one just so she can work on whatever needs to be worked on. And 2 very clear, strong lines. And I was like, again, showed my husband, very, very excited. Did a first, I said, I'm not doing a first response until tomorrow. I'll save it. I'm not doing it. Because by then I had spent an absolute fortune
because they're
on
bloody
tests.
expensive.
Yeah. I needed shares in first response.
Yeah.
And, so the next morning did a test and 2 very, very strong lines. And I was like, okay, here we go again. So Savannah was 9 months old, or just turned 10 months old. They're 18 months apart, pretty much to the day. And we went back to Key. We graduated. We went to our OB. We did our stitch again. I had no bleeding this time whatsoever. I didn't have any restrictions this time round. However, I told my husband I had restrictions.
I would totally do that.
Yeah, just to be 100% safe. I did.
For your own mental health and for your own, I think you've just got to do whatever it is that makes you feel better in that scenario.
100%. 100%. His pregnancy was a lot harder on my body. Obviously, my body still hadn't healed from the triplets pregnancy, so I essentially did 3 back-to-back pregnancies in 2 years.
And 5 babies.
Yep.
You birthed 5 babies. That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
I got gastro in his pregnancy, thanks to my daughter's daycare. At her first birthday, we did a gender reveal, and some people didn't even know we were pregnant. And we did the Canon this time, and I had it. And I couldn't see what colour it was, but I knew it wasn't pink. And everyone was saying boy, and I was like, oh my God, it's a boy. And I was so excited that we had one of each, because I would have been stoked if it was another girl, because I don't have a sister and I wanted that for Savannah. But I was just stoked to have one of each. And in my mind, I didn't need to have any more babies because I had one of each.
Yeah.
And then if we were to do a third, then great. It doesn't matter. I didn't want that pressure or that gender disappointment. And I didn't know if I was going to have it, but
Which is a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to get to that point. So, not only having gastro, in my last 10 weeks of pregnancy, I got food poisoning. from my husband. So he's never lived that down. And Huddy was always measuring huge. He was always just a big boy. I had a posterior placenta, and
perfect. That we like those.
Yes, I could feel his movements. I shit you not, from 16 weeks pregnant. I thought I was imagining things, and each week that passed, his movements got stronger and stronger to the point where my whole belly would move. Like, I honestly don't know how much room he had in there, because he was just big.
And tell me as I keep saying to my sister, oh my gosh, I just hope that I have posterior placentas next, and she's like, I just hope that doesn't upset you, because it'll make you go like, oh my gosh, like this is what it's meant to feel like. Did it make you feel, because I just want that, like I just want to feel it so much, but she's like, she's worried it will upset me of what I didn't feel with Milli.
Yeah, I had my moments that I wish I got to feel them move. I wish I got to have that connection with them, but it was just completely different with Huddy. I think because the only movement I got to feel with them was when one of them kicked their feet through my cervix, there's a lot of trauma around that. Whereas Huddy's movements, and I had my cervical stitch, so I knew he couldn't come out. It was different.
Yeah.
But he was so big.
I'd find it beautiful. I think I'm like so excited for that. I'm like, I want to feel the movements.
Oh, I loved it. Anytime he moved, it was brutal, but I loved it. And I was just like, I never want this feeling to go away. But I remember ringing the hospital saying I need to come in. I think I was like 32, 33 weeks pregnant. And I felt like he was sitting on a nerve in my back, because I had this pain going down my leg. And I was like, I'm never in pain, but I was in pain. I was like, I am so uncomfortable. Like, what is he doing? So we go into the birth suite. And they put me in the same room that I had the triplets. And I remember standing at the door, and I was like, this is my last pregnancy. I need to be able to walk back in here. I need to do like a full circle. So I went in, and there were so many memories just being in that bed. But at the same time, I felt like they were still there. So I was like, I'm going to be okay. And I had relaxed a lot in Huddy's pregnancy. Savannah, when she was younger, used to look into the corner of the room and have a conversation. And I knew
Shut up.
that she was talking to the triplets. I knew she could see them. And that just made me feel like they were saying, we're okay. We are okay.
Yeah.
And that they sent me Savannah and Huddy. And they checked me over. They did the CTG. Everything was fine. And I said, what is going on with this pain? And you had to do a COVID test before you go in. Because again, it was during COVID. So this was 2022. And I had done a test and it came up negative. And I got home. They said he's probably just sitting on a nerve. And I looked at the test again, and there was this second faint line. And I was like, oh shit, I've got COVID. I better
COVID test?
Yeah. And I said, I better do another test. And I did, and it lit up so strong. And I rang the hospital, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I've come in. I didn't know. All your midwives are probably going to get COVID. And they're like, we've had it 10 times over. Honestly, it's fine. And I said, well, what do I do? And they're like, just keep your fluids up. And I'm not vaccinated. I refused to get vaccinated when I was pregnant. I told my OB it's not happening.
Yep.
Don't ask me to get vaccinated. It's not happening. I didn't need to for work, and if I did need to, I was going to find an exemption. I wasn't putting anything more into my body and risking this baby after everything we'd been through.
For sure.
And COVID was nothing more than a cold. I think I got over it in 3 days. I was fine, and the pain down my leg was from COVID. The body aches.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, yeah, we got closer and closer to removing the stitch. Now, realistically, I should have got the stitch removed at 36 weeks pregnant. But again, I'm stubborn. I wanted him to be born in August because that's when he was due. I'm born in August. My husband's born in August. I'm a control freak. I just wanted to have control. So we went into the hospital on the 1st of August to get my stitch removed. So I'm thinking this is going to be easy. Mm-hmm. They're going to be able to take it out very much like the first time. Well, I'm 38 weeks pregnant in 3 days. And he is so big and so ready to come.
Oh, my gosh.
That he is pushing down on my cervix. And every time my OB tried to pull the stitch out, he would push her out of the way. She couldn't get it.
Oh, my word.
And that's my huddy now. So she had speculums up there. She had her hands up there. She had a light. She had everything. And she grabbed it and it snapped. And I'm like, keep trying. And I'm on the gas and air and I'm in tears. Not because I was in pain, because I was frustrated that it wasn't coming out as easily as Savannah's was. So my birth photographer, Jade, who is amazing, she's a scrub nurse at that same hospital. So she had come in to see how I was doing, say hi, because if the stitch came out and I went into labour when we broke my waters like last time, then she needed to be there. So my OB said, I'm really sorry, we're going to have to take you to theatre to get this out. I'm going to have to give you a spinal block. And I said, I don't want a spinal block. And she goes, Sarah, I don't have a choice.
Fuck.
She goes, if you want to have the natural birth that you envision, I need to get it out. Otherwise, you're not going to dilate. So off we went. I got wheeled down. And in hindsight, I wish I fucking walked down. But I didn't. And I got onto the table and they let Ant in the room. And I'd never had an epidural or anything like that. And they're doing the spinal block. And I didn't feel anything. And they put me on the bed and they're like, can you feel us touching your legs? And I'm like, no, I can't freaking move. And I was getting panicked because I couldn't move. And I was starting to panic and my anxiety was taking over. And the anaesthetist was holding me and she's like, it's okay, let's just do a few breaths. And my scrub nurse photographer had scrubbed in and I just see her head and my OB's head pop up over the curtain. And they look at me and they're like, so we haven't touched you yet. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, but your waters just broke. And I said, of course they fucking have because I can't move. And I was so angry that I didn't get to feel my waters break because I wanted that spontaneous. I wanted to know what that felt like. So they said, we're going to get you, we got the stitch and they showed me, they said it was like 2 centimeters. It was like 5. And they said, we'll take you back to your room. We're going to have to monitor him now that your waters broke. And it's probably going to mean no water birth because I wanted a water birth. So nothing had gone to plan. And I remember sending Ant to go and get KFC chips because I started to feel sick and I knew that they would make me feel better because that's all I ate during this pregnancy. And I remember doing a story on Instagram to my close friends, crying, telling them what had happened. telling my family what had happened and how nothing had gone to plan, and I just felt so out of control and I couldn't feel my legs, and I hate that feeling. And I had my KFC chips and they made me feel better, and they said, okay, let's just get a good night's rest and tomorrow morning we're going to have a baby. But because I had a permanent CTG, his heart rate kept dipping, and they had to keep, like, my husband had to physically roll me because I couldn't move. And I had a catheter in, which freaked me out as well. They had to keep rolling me, and they ended up swapping me back from maternity to the birth suite, from maternity to the birth suite, because he just wasn't happy. And we ended up getting some sleep. And at like 6:30 in the morning, they came and got me from maternity, and they said, right, let's go have a baby. And I was like, okay. So I said to Ant, he was asleep, and I said, you stay asleep, you have some breakfast, I'll call you when you need to come over, because they wanted to do some monitoring and stuff first. And we did some monitoring, and it ended up being his heart rate kept dipping, and they were just like, what, there's something going on. And they said, listen, you're not having hard enough contractions, and I wasn't feeling anything. They said, we need to give you the oxytocin because you've had your waters broken for 12 hours. And I said, yeah, okay, that's cool. So they did the oxytocin. I didn't think to walk around. And because I had the oxytocin and I had to be monitored, that instantly meant no water birth. I could go in the shower, but no water birth. So I was kind of defeated that I wasn't going to get my water birth. But I didn't want to let that ruin my moment or my day.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I was on the ball, I was on the bed, and these contractions were bang hard, like one after the other, insane hard. So I called my husband and I said, you need to get your ass in here. Things are happening a lot faster. And he's like, oh, I'm just going to have some breakfast. And I'm like, get in here. You're not having breakfast. Like, I have fast labours. Hurry up. So, yeah, he came in, and I remember being on the ball, and the midwife was monitoring, and she's like, his heart rate keeps dipping. I think there's something going on with his cord. And I said, okay, are we all okay? And and she goes, yeah. She goes, yeah, we're fine. She goes, we're fine. But yeah, something's happening. And I said, okay, cool. So I ended up getting this massive urge to push, and I was like, something's happening. Can you check me? So they check me, and they're like, you're about 7 centimeters. And I was like, okay, whatever. Kept bouncing, and I said, no, something's happening. And they had a look, and they're like, you're 9.5 centimeters, like in a matter of half an hour. So I had gone from 4 centimeters, which is the start, to 7 centimeters, to getting to 9.5 centimeters ready to push in 2 hours. And
far out. My
OB was monitoring from her office downstairs, and they said, you need to get up here. And she flew up the stairs into my room. And I said, yeah. I have to push. I don't have control over this. I have to push. And I started pushing. One push, out he flew. And they put him on my chest, and I cried so hard because I knew this was the last time that I was doing it, and he was here safe, and I had Savannah at home, and I had no intention of doing IVF again, and they were safe. I knew. So he was on my chest, and he was just breathing really funny. And I said to them, something's wrong. He's not breathing correctly. Something's wrong. So they took him next to me and they're putting oxygen into him and everything like that. And they brought him back to me. So I didn't really get to do my skin on skin and the delayed cord clamping, and he was still breathing funny. And they said, we're calling the pediatrician. So the pediatrician came and said, listen, he's fine. But what we think's happened is because you've had such a quick labour and he's come out, the contractions, you haven't had enough to push that fluid out of his
lungs.
And his lungs. Okay, and they said, we're just going to take him to special care. And I said, that's fine. And I said to my husband, I said, you go with him. Do not leave his side. So they took him to special care, and my midwife stayed with me, and they couldn't control my bleeding. I just kept bleeding. So what we worked out had happened when he had come out, he had a true knot in his umbilical cord. So he had done a 360 in my belly and had put a tight knot in his umbilical cord.
Oh, shit.
But he had done it in like the last week of pregnancy. So every time that he had moved, that's what was making his heart rate dip. And they said it's super rare.
Out. So lucky that he was okay.
Yeah, they said it's super rare. It only happens in like 2% of pregnancies. So hubby went off with him to special care, and they couldn't control my bleeding. So they gave me an injection. It's called tranexamic acid or something. And I was warned it was going to make me feel awful. And sure enough, it made me feel awful. I was so sick. And my blood pressure was really, really low. So they put me in the shower on a plastic chair. And I was horrified that I was sitting on this plastic chair surrounded by blood. And the midwife got me dressed, and I said, okay, can I go walk to special care now? And they were like, you're not walking anywhere. We'll put you in a wheelchair. You are unwell. And I was like, okay. So I had seen videos of Huddy in special care and had sent them to me. And I remember being wheeled up, and they'd put him in a full crib, and he had a CPAP machine on. And he was huge. He was 3.95 kilos. He was a big boy. And I burst into tears when I saw him because it was so overwhelming. And they're like, he's going to be fine. He just needs a couple of days in there. And I could only be with him for like 5 minutes. I said to the midwife, I need to go back to my room. I feel so unwell. So I did, and I got some rest. And they were giving me Voltaren to help, like, your tummy. I don't know. But I don't take medication. So the Voltaren was actually making me sick. So I had both ends happening. I could not keep anything down. My ass was doing its own thing. I could not move from my room. And I remember that night going to see Huddy before bed, and I'm clutching a spew bag, praying to anyone listening that I do not throw up. Just get me down there and get me back. And the nurses ended up banning me from special care because they thought I had gastro. And I was hysterical that I couldn't go in and see him.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until my OB came up and said she doesn't have gastro. She's on these hardcore meds, and that's what's making her sick. So they had moved him. And, I mean, I understand they didn't want someone that was sick in special care. There were other babies in there.
Yeah,
they
I understand
ended up moving him to the other end of special care so I could come in a separate door to be with him. But because
that's good.
Yeah, because I had, like, been in the bed so unwell and I hadn't moved. I got up to go to the toilet and I ended up having to call the emergency button. A blood clot the size of my hand had come out of me. And I was like, oh my God, what just happened? But because I had been in bed, they think it had just pulled and it was fine. it coagulated or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he was in special care for probably 3 or 4 nights, and then we had him in our room for 1 night, and then we got to go home. And we could have stayed longer, but I just wanted to go home. My mum had Savannah. She was 18 months old. I just wanted to be in my own space. But, yeah, he was
And there was nothing
fine.
wrong with him? Like, it was just that the birth was, oh, good.
Nothing wrong with him. He was just born too fast.
Yay.
Yeah.
And so what have you ended up... So you've got 5 frozen embryos.
We have 3... We have 3 frozen embryos.
3. You have 3.
Yeah, so
and
because
what's
we
your
use
plan
them.
with them?
I don't know. I really don't. I have no intention of doing a transfer. I don't think we could donate them to another couple. As lovely as that idea sounds, I think I would always then wonder what this biological child of ours would be or what they're doing. So I might maybe get some nice jewelry made, or I really want to put them with the triplets' ashes. I just haven't really thought about it because I want them all to be together. But
I didn't know you could get... Yeah, that's beautiful. I didn't know you could get jewelry made out of embryos.
Yeah, so...
You can.
I don't know. It's getting to the point now where I'm only just trying to think about what to do, because it's only recently that I'm speaking to a therapist to kind of unlock all that trauma, just because I've pushed it down. That's what I did. I went back-to-back cycles, back-to-back pregnancies, and kept myself busy.
And it's been so interesting talking to you the last couple of days because you reached out to me. You said you finally listened to the podcast and that you felt so seen and heard and the stories. And my doctor, like straight away when we lost Milli, I was like, I need to go again, not to replace her, but I was like, I need my baby in my arms. And she was like, Rochelle, I assure you, if you don't deal with the trauma now, it's going to hit you later. Yeah. And it is... I don't think trauma is ever going to not hit us, but it is so interesting hearing your story and having chatted to you over the last couple of days from someone who has gone back to back, and now you're saying like it's all coming up for you now. So you never saw a therapist at the time. You didn't receive any help or anything after the triplets?
We did go see a therapist together, but it was still so raw and so surreal that whatever she was telling us wasn't making sense. So I said, no, this isn't for us. And it's only now, and I think I'm seeing the right therapist for me as well,
that's so important.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's still very early days. I haven't unpacked anything. But I just want to give it the time and the attention that it needs because the last few months have been hard. Like, I'm not the Sarah I know, and everyone around me says the same thing, and I just kind of want to get back to myself, but I'm never going to be the person I was before after going through what we went through. But I think it's healthy to talk about it.
And what do you think? Yeah, what do you think it is now that's starting to bring it up for you? Is it just like that life's been able to somewhat slow down, even though you've got 2 toddlers? That would be impossible. But, is it all of a sudden the reality of like, holy fuck, I went through a lot over the last, 4 years?
Yeah, it's different triggers. Because I only have 18 months between them, if I go out with people, or when I was pregnant with Huddy, I think I went out at 37 weeks pregnant and I had Savannah in the pram and a lady goes, oh, they're close in age. What will it be? And I said 18 months. And she goes, oh, they may as well be twins. You're just lucky because she said I looked so big. And she's like, oh, you're lucky. It's not triplets. And I remember cracking it. And I remember saying, that's not what you say to someone.
Oh, my word.
I said, I've had triplets and I lost them at 19 weeks. And I end up walking away and leaving.
You said that?
Yeah, I just lost it. And
yeah,
she was so apologetic to my husband. I couldn't even go back to her and accept her apology. I just had to walk away. And it's like, it's triggers these days where someone's like, oh, could you imagine if the triplets survived having all three of them, what your life would be like? And I'm like, you can't.
Yeah, it would have been a fucking blessing.
I'm like, you can't say that.
Yeah,
like do you not do you not think that I know that it would be insanely hard? Yes, I understand that. But
challenging, sleepless nights, babies crying, all the things.
But that's the cards that was dealt to me, and I'm not a religious person, but I do believe there is God. And I do believe things happen for a reason, and as shitty as my story is, if I didn't lose the triplets and go through what I did, I wouldn't have my children today, and they are amazing. And I'm always going to be a mum of 5, and I hate that question when people ask you, oh, are they your only 2? Like, what do I say to that? And you have to pick and choose when you say to people.
Yeah.
And it's not a matter of making them uncomfortable. It's a matter of making them realize that everyday people go through shitty fucking things and we survive it. We get through it. That's my absolute question I hate, because I want to scream at them. I have 5 babies. I birthed 5 babies, but I only have 2 of them here. But it just fucking
and sometimes sucks. You do and sometimes you don't. That's what we've learnt as well. Yeah, we've learnt that sometimes. We were on a bus in San Francisco a few weeks ago, and there was a woman and a man sitting on the back seat with us, and they were hilarious and we were, having good banter. And then she said, do you guys have kids? And Dylan said no, and then went to continue, and she said, oh, good, don't do that, blah, 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 blah. And then we went, oh, actually, our little girl just died 12 weeks ago. And she was mortified. She ended up being a Christian. She serves in her church. She has all these kids and rah-rah. And I thought, I'm sure she was mortified, but I thought that was actually a really silly comment from someone who actually has kids. And whilst on the bus tour, her kids called her probably 5 times. Like, she seemed like a phenomenal mum.
Yeah.
And it was just like, why did you have that? Why was her first comment like, oh, yeah, don't do that. It's hard work,
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just, they're all, I'm sure she died more than we did about the comment that she made, but it's, some days you fight the battle of what am I going to say in response to this, of do you have kids? And Dylan and I got really good on this holiday we just went on with, we do, but she's in heaven, or we do, but we just lost her. And it's like, you have to learn that, though. In the first couple of weeks after losing her, I just didn't speak to people. I looked like the rudest person on earth. I'd go in, do a Pilates class and leave and not make eye contact, because I'm like, I don't want to have a conversation with someone in case they ask me, do I have kids? Or in case they ask me a question that I just don't know how to answer.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to honor your heavenly babies, but you just sometimes just get so shocked about it. So it's been so lovely hearing your story today, and I think such an informative one. I think, like, the podcast in general about IUI, IVF, egg transfers, cycles, frozen, fresh, like all of this, and I understand it all, but to some people they would be like, oh my word, like that is a lot of information. I love that, you have your 2 beautiful earth babies, and I love hearing about them so much. Like, I just think that's such a blessing, and I'm so stoked for you. I am really looking forward to seeing your journey going forward with your therapy, and I really can't wait to see what you do end up doing with the triplets ashes. I think that will be such a healing time for you.
Yeah.
I think once you get to a space where you can go back into that moment and open up that box, like, I have Milli's ashes in her box and all that stuff all here, but that's just me. Like, I'm just like, I'm in it. I'm in the depths of it. We're getting tattoos next week with her ashes in the ink. We've had, you know, jewelry made, whatever, but yeah, different circumstances. But
Yeah.
I really look forward to seeing what you do there. And I think it's going to be a really, really huge moment for you when you do kind of step back into that realm.
Yeah, I got I got a tattoo designed for them with their names. I just have never gotten around to doing it because I've been pregnant or breastfeeding. But I think that
True.
And going through their box of things when I'm ready, I think it will be really healing. It's just I need to sort myself out first so that I can be ready to do that. But yeah, I mean it's their 4-year anniversary, and I'd love to say it gets easier, but it really doesn't. But I allow myself that time to remember them, and I'll never forget them. But some people get dealt shitty cards, and it's unfortunately happening more and more to everyday people. And I just want to educate people by doing podcasts, by talking about the triplets, by saying their names. And on my Instagram page, I have so many people that message me privately saying, hey, we're going through the same thing. How did you manage this? And I hate that so many people are going through it, but I love that I can just help those people through it and what to expect. Yeah. And I tell them to take as many photos and videos as you can. Yes. We only have about 10 photos, and that's all that I have. I don't even have like photos that I wanted to get, but you don't know that at the time. So that's my one piece of advice to people. Just take as many photos as you can. Yeah.
We have millions of photos and videos, and my biggest thing is I wish I got to hold her for longer. I wish I did. I mean, but again, in hindsight, I wish I never left that fucking hospital room. You know, but it made me feel better when you said earlier, like, you know, we had to leave to give them, you know, it was our time, and it was selfish of us to stay there longer, you know. But for me, I'm like, I just wish I never left her.
Yeah.
We never know. But hopefully things like this podcast will, you know, do educate people to, you know, maybe it might be that somebody hears it and then in however long, you know, years to come, somebody's friend's going through it and they're like, hey, I've heard this podcast before. Like, let's just make sure we get lots of photos and be there and come and clean their house and make them food. And the person who's lost their babies does not know what they need. Yes. But what they do need is just somebody to come in, clean their house, put food in front of them, even if they don't eat it, put a bottle of water in front of them, take photos, talk about their babies, or sit there in silence or whatever. But the person who's lost their babies does not know what they need, I assure you.
Exactly.
They don't know.
Exactly.
So just be there. Be there in whatever way.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to share?
No. I'm just so blessed to be doing this. I mean, I listen to your podcast and it's been such a help for me. So I just hope that it helps those other lost parents. But yeah, it's been a good few hours just to relate.
Yeah, totally. And it's so crazy when stories are so different but so the same. Like, your story is so different to mine.
Yeah.
But yet you relate in so many ways. And that's why sometimes it triggers you and you just start bawling. Like for me, I start bawling my eyes out and then I'm like, wow, like it's just, you know, it's a lot. And I'm so excited to be where you are in 4 years' time and be able to talk about my little earth babies. You inspire me and you give me so much hope. And now I'm on the IVF journey. I'm literally 4 days in. So it's just, so lovely to be connecting with you. And I truly believe that when we as mums or dads become friends on earth, that our babies are dancing in heaven together. So 100%. Milli has so many friends up there.
100% agree with that.
Do you reckon like her and Ashton are dating or something?
Probably.
I just imagine them all having so much friends and having dance parties and running around in the fields, and I just love the thought of heaven.
Yeah, so do I.
All right, my beautiful. Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And this potty will be up on Sunday. What I'm going to get you to do is send me through like a little link of anything that you want to put into the bio of the podcast, so that if anyone wants to reach out to you, you know, in which way they can or want.
Okay, can do. Savannah's just got homesick from daycare, so.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Just what she needed.
Lucky me.
I think I can hear her. I can hear her.
Yeah.
All right, go give her the biggest cuddles ever.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you, darling.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Little Life, Big Loss. If you are here because you've experienced baby loss recently or a long time ago, I'm so sorry. I know this pain will never go away. My heart breaks with you. This is a pain no one ever expects to endure. Or maybe you are listening because you have just found out your baby is unwell in utero, and now you have some really hard-hitting decisions to make. I am, again, so sorry. These are decisions no parent should ever have to make. I hope these podcasts can lighten the load just a little bit in ways to help understand what the road ahead might look like and what your options are. Remember, you always have options. It is your body and your baby. If you have never experienced the loss of a baby and you are here to learn, thank you. We want to be heard and listened to. You will help someone somewhere with the knowledge taken from these podcasts. If any of today's conversation has triggered any uneasy emotions for you, please contact Lifeline on 13 11 14 or lifeline.org. Another organisation working specifically with pre- and postnatal depression and anxiety is Panda. You can find them at panda.org.au. And remember, postnatal depression and anxiety does not discriminate. It can affect both men and women, mums and dads. Please seek help from your GP, a psychologist, your local hospital, a midwife, obstetrician, Lifeline, or Panda. Thank you again for listening. I love you and miss you, my Milli.